Okay, Mr. DeMille, are we ready for my closer? So, there you go. Actually, I've kind of paraphrased the title slightly in my notes. But did dinosaurs exist? Did God wipe them out? Now, I know this series is called Tough Topics, but this one is a bit of a doozy. After all, what I know about dinosaurs could be written on a very small postage stamp. I mean, I did the usual visit, you know, to the Natural History Museum when I was at school. But that was as far as I got. But this isn't about what I know. It is about what I think or believe. And it revolves around these two questions. Did dinosaurs exist? And if so, did God wipe them out? I guess many of you are thinking, of course they existed. Look at all the fossils, bones and stuff. There's so much evidence. Surely they existed. But not everybody thinks like that. There are all sorts of great theories. Believe me, there are lots. One I came across is based on a quote where someone said that fossils were placed in rocks by Satan to make us question the Bible. Okay, I guess I can see how that might make sense. A further twist on that, and this is one of my favourites, is someone took that quote and they changed it around and said, fossils were placed in rocks by a prankster god to fool us into thinking the world was older than it really is. I just love the idea that God is sat there thinking, how can I mess with their minds now? I know, I'll stick a load of big fossils in rocks. That'll keep them guessing for years. I just love the thought that God's that kind of sense of humour. Another theory. Dinosaurs were created at the same time as man, on that 6th day, and mostly died off in the flood that happened in Noah's time. Even those who made it onto the ark then suffered because of the changing climate, the lack of food, and things that changed following the flood. So dinosaurs were with us, but died around the time of Noah. And that's another interesting theory. Although I'm not too sure about that. But I suppose you could get some of the smaller dinosaurs on the ark, maybe, without them eating everything and everyone on it. I'm not so sure I'd want to share an ark with a T-Rex. But that's personal choice. Others believe that man and dinosaur lived side by side, sharing the world. Although the evidence we have makes that somewhat unlikely. But then, there is a common misconception over what a dinosaur actually is. And when they lived. Not surprising when there are films which portray man fighting dinosaurs. Nice little animated films of mammoths travelling with other smaller dinosaurs, trying to find a home. Oh, that's sweet. All of this adds up to a bit of a mishmash of thoughts, ideas and beliefs. I am no expert, I'd just like to say that right now. So I rely on the wisdom of others, as we all do from time to time. And the conventional wisdom is that dinosaurs died out well before man came on the scene. In fact, it was the extinction of the dinosaurs, possibly by a very large asteroid hitting the Earth. I don't know, I wasn't there. That cleared the way for man to actually arrive. All of those huge creatures died, along with about 75% of all animals and plant species, leaving only much smaller creatures behind. These then flourished and with the passing of time became us and all those lovely, wonderful animals we know and love. So where is the confusion? It is generally in the definition of a dinosaur. Many think, and I'll put my hands up here, I was among them, yeah, that woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers were dinosaurs, or lived at the same time as dinosaurs. Turns out I was wrong. Absolutely, completely wrong. Hey. But the good news is that any films that show man fighting mammoths or saber-toothed tigers are still okay, because mammoths still existed when man was around. Although they didn't last very long afterwards. But hey, and it's generally accepted that the dinosaurs that we've come to know and love are actually big reptiles. Fair enough. So that's the confusion cleared up. So I believe dinosaurs existed. But does that mean that the Bible is wrong? That it doesn't account for them? Not at all. After all, we read in Genesis that man was created on the sixth day, almost at the very end of God's creation. And this world, in which we find ourselves, many creatures were created before us. So why not dinosaurs? We should also remember that Genesis was revealed to the writers by God to give them some understanding of history and some understanding of how things began. And as such, it had to be in a form they could understand, a form they could grasp. After all, if the revelation had been scientific, I'm sure that Genesis would read very much like Revelations, as the early Hebrews tried to put it into words, concepts way beyond their understanding or knowledge. Now, if we view Genesis in that light, it actually doesn't do too bad a job. As an aside, and this is just something I picked up while I was doing the reading for this, there's a Hebrew word used in the very old copies of the Old Testament called tannin, which actually means monsters. Interesting. So some of the older versions of the Bible said that God created monsters on land and in the sea. Could be dinosaurs. The Bible also tells us that behemoth was among the first of the ways of God. So maybe that made behemoth the first creature God ever created. Could it have been a dinosaur? Who knows? In the current versions, we hear more about behemoth and Leviathan. Now, behemoth could possibly be a mammoth. Mammoths were big elephant-type creatures. They ate plants, and we've heard from the reading that that's what behemoth did. They were strong, and they were around when man was around, so all adding up quite nicely, really. However, it also says that it had a tail like a sea tree. Now, I don't know. I'm not an expert on elephants, but I've been to the zoo a few times, and they've all got little waggly tails. You very rarely see an elephant tail like a cedar tree. So maybe behemoth wasn't a mammoth. Then there is Leviathan, and I love Leviathan. It's generally thought to be some sort of super crocodile, which is great because crocodiles are sort of the closest thing we've got to dinosaurs, I think, these days. But who knows? Maybe it's the giant squid out of Captain Nemo. Has anybody seen the film? No? Brilliant. Giant squid, awesome. Mind you, the Bible does say that Leviathan is a serpent. So maybe it's more like a sea dragon.
Yes,
I don't know. It's all getting very confusing now, isn't it? What is a dinosaur? Did they exist? Were they just sea dragons? Who knows? Either way, it seems to me that creatures mentioned in the Bible appear well after the last dinosaur shuttled off, as people call them, according to our current understanding of events. But then who knows what we'll learn tomorrow? Scientific knowledge changes by the day. Which brings us to the second question. Did God wipe out the dinosaurs? Now for me that's even trickier. After all, there is evidence of a huge meteor that hit the Earth, causing an extinction level event, as they like to say in American films. And no further remains of dinosaurs seem to have existed after that time. But was it directed by God? Or was it a huge cosmic accident? If God does not directly interfere in our lives, gives us free will to do as we will, does that mean that God doesn't mess with the rest of the universe? I don't know. Don't be looking to me to answer that one. I have absolutely no idea. But perhaps God designed the dinosaur first. Tried it out for a while to see how things went. Then decided to create man. Realised the two could not live side by side, that the world would not be big enough for these huge dinosaurs, and man procreates like crazy. And so perhaps God thought the best way to go was to eradicate one ecosystem and start a new one, possibly by hitting the planet with a large asteroid, which removed everything over roughly 55 pounds in weight. Now that's a bit boring. I'm over 55 pounds in weight. So, hey, but lucky enough, we're still here. And so perhaps God started with a more subtle system, one that develops over time. It's possible. On the other hand, maybe it was an accident. Maybe a wayward asteroid just happened to collide with Earth, wiping out all that hard work. So God had to start from scratch. Which sounds interesting. I mean, I can imagine God just finished creating the world. He's done all these marvellous creatures, these huge dinosaurs, all these different plants. And then bang, it all gets trashed by a rock. Now, if God swears, and since we do, and we're in God's image, I'm assuming God swears, I imagine there were a few choice words said at that point. Before settling down to make the best of it, start repairing the damage. Maybe tweaking things just a little. Maybe a few less huge pieces. Maybe some intricate smaller animals. Maybe even a plan to have some of them get to the point where they can protect this great piece of art we call home. As I said before, I actually don't know the answers to these questions. Not with any certainty. So all I can do really is share my thoughts on the subject, based on my personal belief, my personal faith. I see no problem with the biblical account of creation and the scientific description of dinosaurs having existed. After all, in my mind, it all revolves around how long is God's day in comparison to our lives. I mean, we often hear in the Bible that we are but a blink of an eye to God. Clearly time is very different for us. So for me, yes, dinosaurs existed. I personally believe God created them. As for their destruction, I'm still in two minds. I cannot actually decide. Part of me feels that actually they had to go so we could be created. That their death paved the way for our lives. That events so long ago had to happen to allow us to flourish and grow. After all, where would we be without fossil fuels? Part of it. The other part of me struggles with the notion that the God that I pray to, the God of love, would wipe out so much of the diversity they themselves put into this world. However, I come down on this dilemma on the side of, I don't know the plan. And so I trust that everything God does is for our good. Even the hard stuff, the difficult things. But that being said, I guess there will be many more tough topics to be discussed, examined, questioned. And who knows, as time passes, maybe even resolved. For now, I am content to accept the existence of dinosaurs, their demise, and our own progress with the same wonder and awe I feel every time I see a huge storm or something baffling or slightly scary that takes my breath away. Because in that, I see God. Thank you.